I'm Harold, and this is my wife, Denise. We've been married 60 years now, and I have to say something important before you scroll past or fast forward. The advice we're going to give you is what we wish we'd heard on our wedding day back in 1964. These aren't minor issues. They're the errors that nearly ended our marriage. If you're in a partnership or considering one, listen up. When Harold mentions how we almost broke apart, he's not exaggerating. There were stretches of time when I genuinely doubted we'd reach the next anniversary. Nowadays, folks look at us side by side and figure it was all easy sailing. They spot those 60 years and assume we nailed it from the start. Truth is, we didn't. We committed blunders that stole precious years from us. Years of intimacy and connection we'll never recover, but we grew from it. That's the reason we're sharing this today. First big error, tallying up who contributes more. In the initial 15 years of our union, I maintained a silent tally in my head. I'd haul out the garbage, cut the grass, repair stuff in the home. Whenever Denise requested help with another task, I'd silently gripe. Quote, zero, I never voiced it outright, but she sensed the attitude. That bitterness hung between us like an invisible barrier. I had my own scorecard, too. I prepared every meal from scratch. I brought up our 3 children, coordinated their routines, comforted them through illnesses at night. I tidied up, kept everything in order, tracked every family birthday and milestone. When Harold got home and griped about exhaustion, I felt like exploding, but I held back. Instead, I just noted it mentally, another entry on my ledger of how I was pulling extra weight, showing more concern, putting in greater effort. It tainted everything because a marriage isn't a ledger of trades, It's not about ensuring a perfect 50-50 split on every chore, from the final plate to the last diaper. In certain phases, one partner shoulders the load. Back in 1983, when my injury sidelined me from work for 4 months, Denise shouldered it all. She pulled double nursing shifts, returned home to nurse me and the kids. I couldn't track points during that ordeal. Later, during her health challenges, I stepped up similarly. Yet we squandered countless years beforehand by quantifying, contrasting, and nursing grudges over whose sacrifices outweighed the others. The turning point arrived when our eldest daughter, around 30 then, and facing her own marital issues, asked me point-blank, quote one, that stung deeply since our love never wavered. I still believe that. But had we gotten so fixated on equity that we'd lost sight of teamwork? After that, I quit the counting game. It took time, not an instant switch, and Harold followed suit. Second misstep, believing you can reshape one another. Denise thrives on structure. She's always been that way. Lists are her thing. She maps out every detail and insists on knowing the agenda weeks ahead. That's not me. I've always leaned toward improvisation, rolling with whatever comes. For years, decades even, we clashed over it. She'd bristle at my reluctance to lock in schedules, and I'd chafe at her inability to unwind and embrace the present. I figured that with the perfect pitch or enough frustration on my end, Harold would grasp why foresight was crucial and adjust accordingly. I'd remark, "Why can't you get more structured?" He'd counter, quote 3. We were essentially attempting to mold each other into alternate versions, and it backfires. It leaves everyone feeling deficient and overlooked. The breakthrough happened when we embraced that Denise's organizational bent isn't a defect. It's her way of navigating life, offering her a sense of stability. My improvisational style isn't recklessness, it's my path to happiness. We ceased viewing our contrasts as defects to correct and began treating them as assets to leverage. These days, Denise orchestrates our major vacations, oversees the budget, maintains our appointments, while I keep things lively with impromptu outings, surprise blooms, or unplanned interludes. We enhance one another rather than battling. Third era, bottling up the tough conversations until they erupt. I'm the prime offender here, totally at fault. I'd allow minor irritations and slights to accumulate without addressing them, figuring it wasn't worth sparking conflict. I'd tell myself to brush it off and move on. But ignoring it all doesn't make it vanish. It stacks up within until a small trigger ignites a blow-up over some incident from half a year prior. I recall an instance from the early 2000s. Denise had I completely snapped over something as simple as forgetting to grab the milk, nothing more than that. Next thing I know, she's shouting about how I never pay attention, how I'm always letting stuff slip my mind. And there I am, baffled, thinking, quote 4? But nope, it wasn't just about the milk. It was the culmination of 6 months where she felt totally ignored, and that forgotten carton was merely the breaking point. Looking back, if I'd just approached Harold sooner, in a level-headed way, saying something like, quote 5, we could have had a real discussion. But instead, I bottled it up until the pressure built too high and it exploded as criticism. That approach fixes nothing. We've since figured out how to voice concerns sooner, not in a hostile manner, but with genuine openness. Quote, _6, _. Yeah, it might feel a bit uncomfortable initially, but it's worlds better than letting it fester. Those tough talks don't need to turn into conflicts. They can simply be dialogues. Mistake number 4. Assuming your marriage can cruise along without any input. After roughly 25 years, we slipped into this predictable pattern. We understood one another inside out. We'd weathered countless storms together, so we figured the bond would keep going on its own. We quit pursuing each other romantically. We quit having deep chats beyond the basics. Who's handling the shopping? What time's the dental checkup? Did the power bill get settled? We turned into mere housemates who now and then shared a bed. The frightening part? It crept up on us so subtly that we barely registered it. There wasn't one defining instant when we chose to give up the effort, the spark, the interest in one another's lives, the deliberate actions, all just dimmed gradually. We settled into ease, and that ease morphed into indifference. What jolted us awake was seeing our friends split after 38 years of marriage. Folks were stunned since they always appeared solid. But she confided in me afterward that they'd only been okay, mediocre at best, not joyful, not truly linked, just coexisting side by side. Eventually, she saw she didn't want to pass her later years merely surviving. That prospect chilled me to the core. That's when we shook things up. We began sharing meals at the dining table, away from the screen. We resumed probing with meaningful questions. What's on your mind? What brought a smile to your face this week? We'd take short evening strolls, only 20 minutes or so, but it was dedicated time for the two of us. We revived our date nights, too, not extravagant, just purposeful moments together. Could be a quick drive for ice cream and chatting in the car, or maybe a game of cards right there in the kitchen. The point is carving out space to prioritize one another, not chores or duties. A marriage demands focus. It requires nurturing. Neglect it, and it won't flourish. Mistake number 5, losing sight of the fact that you're teammates. This one's huge. During our arguments, particularly in those central years, it often seemed like we were rivals, each pushing to come out on top by proving our side right and the other's wrong. Every clash turned into a showdown, and showdowns always leave victors and defeated. Yet marriage isn't a competition. If one comes out ahead and the other falls short, everybody loses because you're meant to be allies navigating life as a unit, not adversaries out to best each other. The real shift happened around our middle son's rough patch. He'd been laid off. His own marriage was crumbling, and he came home to stay with us for a bit. At 40, he was utterly shattered. Denise and I saw different paths to help him, but bickering wasn't an option. This was our boy, so we conversed deeply, heard each other out, found middle ground. Supporting Daniel brought it home. We're a unit. It's not Harold against Denise. It's Harold and Denise, united against whatever life throws. Every issue, choice, or hurdle, we face them side by side. We differ as partners aiming for the same goal, not as foes. Once you recall that team dynamic, fights transform. You quit wielding words as weapons. You begin with phrases like, "Can you help me see your viewpoint?" rather than, "That's incorrect." You seek resolutions over ways to validate your stance. We're far from flawless. Even today, after 60 years, slip-ups happen. We still irritate one another. Harold still overlooks details. I still overschedule. Old habits resurface now and then, but we're aware now. We spot the missteps. We adjust. We opt for each other daily. If I could whisper one piece of advice to my younger self, it'd boil down to these 5 lessons. Quit tallying faults. Embrace who she truly is. Address the tough topics early before they escalate. Dynamite stuff. Keep courting your spouse no matter what. And don't forget, you're always playing for the same side. 60 years is quite a stretch. We've laid friends to rest, brought up our kids, weathered tough times, and toasted our triumphs. We've evolved tremendously since those early days in 1964, but we've grown side by side, and that's what truly counts. Our channel features folks just like us, opening up about lessons from a lifetime of experiences. If this struck a chord with you, hit subscribe and enable those alerts. Share in the comments below which error hit home the hardest for you. Give us a thumbs up. Oh, and by the way, we're gearing up for a Q&A session shortly. Got questions for us? Fire away on marriage, daily life, our biggest slip-ups. Whatever's on your mind, just post it in the comments. We'd be thrilled to respond. Eternity isn't in the cards for us, but for as long as we're around, we aim to share our hard-earned wisdom. It might spare you some of our past heartaches. It could even fortify your own bond. In any case, thanks for tuning in.